time.
Of Time magazine.
Yeah.
You tell stories through a lens, is what you do. What inspired you to go and shoot these women and tell their story?
I think we're living in extraordinary times, and I think they promised us more connectivity than we ever had before, but actually, in many ways, it's done the opposite. And we have become more divided as a society, and we've become completely tribal. I'm one of the optimists in society. I refuse to be a pessimist. And I think people want to belong to something beautiful again. And I happen to think that us artists in the world have an important role to play, because I think we're the bridge builders in society. So I think we're one of those groups that can serve a purpose and not just make art that comes from our hearts. I think that's very important too. But I think it's also important that we apply our skill set and the tools, the few tools that we have, to try and build bridges in society. So through my pictures, I got to, I was invited to photograph the legendary Dr. Mukwege, came to my studio in New York. And I didn't know that much about it, you know. So he started telling me about, you know, this whole story in his hospital. And despite all his achievements, and he knows so many world leaders, many of the same leaders that I've been privileged to photograph as well, and yet he was very humble with me, and he said, you know, the story still hasn't been told properly from the point of view of the women's resilience to overcome. So as he told me more and more, I realized that it's my moral obligation to apply the few skills I have to try and help. But as you can see, I'm a man, and I'm a white man, and this is a very complicated story to navigate, and to win the trust of people who have already been hurt so much is a huge task. So it's been 7 years. It took me about 4 years to build the trust at the hospital. It took me years to raise the money to go. I'm very privileged. I've got my own human rights foundation, because now we raise our own money. I'm not dependent on a media on any level that has an agenda from the left or the right.
Wow.
I feel it's time for us to do so. My foundation is called the People's Portfolio, because that's what it is. It's a portfolio of stories that belongs to people, and it's about the people. And so I believe it's time that we as global citizens step up. And I think that there's a question that we have to ask ourselves. It's a difficult question. Are we to be bystanders, like moths dancing around somebody else's flame? Or are we to be upstanders? And we light the darkness ourselves with our own torches of compassion. And so I've been taught by great people in history to be an activist. People I photographed, like Muhammad Ali, or Professor Stephen Hawking, or all the civil rights heroes of America, that taught me to be radical in my thinking. And so I'm one of the upstanders now. And I'm going to do what I can.
Not even radical, just right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Martin Luther King always said truth and righteousness is his church, was his church. And those are two things that can't be bought, and they don't belong to one side of politics or the other. I don't believe in left versus right. I believe in right versus wrong. And I do believe that it's not always clear what's right and what's wrong. Sometimes that line is a bit blurred. But what makes an honourable person is when you recognise that perhaps you've crossed over to the wrong side, and you do everything in your power to bring yourself and the people around you back over to the right side of history. So, look, we all go wrong. That's inevitable. But the question is, can we correct the path? And when I look at an audience like this, I don't see tribalism. I don't see pessimism. I see greatness in your hearts because you're here and you showed up. And this is that beautiful thing called a shared experience, where we all come together as a community and share ideas and push each other and try to inspire each other to think differently. So that gives me great hope. I think we should give our hosts a bit of a round of applause for creating a shared experience.
She's taking it in. But this film, I watched it with my husband last night, and we were just, our jaws dropped. The women, they remain peaceful and hopeful and never give up. How can they do that? How do they do that? Their resilience is incredible.
I have been, as I said before, I've been very privileged to have photographed. Someone told me I've photographed more world leaders than anyone in history. So I've worked with all our living presidents, including Bush Sr., who recently passed away. I've worked with Gaddafi. I've worked with Putin. I've seen power up close, and the way I work with people, it's not from a safe distance. So if I'm involved, I could feel Putin's breath on my hand as I focus the lens. So I know what power is, but the question is not, do you have power, or are you a leader? The question is, are you a great leader? It's a question I ask myself all the time. What does it take to be a great leader in history? And I would like to think that there's a magical word called service. And a great leader thinks of themselves not just someone who has authority, but someone who thinks of themselves as a servant of the people. And So the ladies in this film taught me about what it is to be a great leader in history. They might not be famous. Well, they're getting famous now since I've made this film, but that they might not be well known or household names. But what they did was something extraordinary, and this is the message of the film, that actually they have suffered the wrongs of life, and yet they refuse to be victims. Even though they have been victimized, they choose to transform what has been done to them into something beautiful called compassion for other people. And that shows an enormous amount of strength, and as you say, resilience, to turn your own pain into something gentle and beautiful called empathy for others. That is what it takes to be a great leader. And I have to be honest, I have not seen that in any of our world leaders and in any of our presidents in this country. I never saw that, but when I went to the Congo and Dr. Mukwege introduced me to these extraordinary people, they are the ones that taught me what a great leader in history is. So when you may have heard Donald Trump went to Davos 2 years ago, I think it was, and he made this big presentation in front of the global elite. I'm on the board at the World Economic Forum, so this is my terrain. And I watched as he made this big speech about America First, and he sat for me too. And then he walked off stage, and I was invited to read the words of Sandra's song directly after him on the same stage. And when he left stage, there was silence in the room. And when I left stage, Sandra's words, "My body is not a weapon," got a round of applause, and everyone stood with an ovation. And that wasn't for me, that was for Sandra. So her message reached the most powerful people in the world, including all the tech companies, by the way, who have made extraordinary amounts of money from selling us products and have not told us that there might be blood on those products. They don't tell us that bit about our empowerment. They just tell us how cool these products are. Well, I think now that we're all little Philip Marlowes and we've all got this thing called the internet, we can all start investigating for ourselves, thank you very much. And if you go to mybodyisnotaweapon.com, you'll see it's just a blank page with two things on it. One is a list of the companies that are responsible in their sourcing.
This is important.
Right? So you can feel good if the companies that you buy tech products from are on that list. You can feel you're on the right side of history. And then there's a donate button, because we are going to raise our own $2.2 million from the people and fix the problem that that big foundation in America didn't send a check for. I believe that we can do it ourselves. So if you want to be part of the movement, even $10 or $5 helps to make a difference.
Overly political, but that's a little, it was outstanding when I heard that, but the check never came.
You know, I've thought about this a lot.
Yeah.
And we debated, my executive director, Elizabeth Blackney, is here. She runs my foundation. She used to work for Dr. Mukwege, and with his blessing, he invited her to join me so that we could do this on a global scale. Now we're tearing up the world and shaking it up like Arlene told me to do. But the Clinton bit was very complicated, and I don't believe in being accusatory. And I think, as I said, I've seen enough of this tribalism, so I don't really want to get involved with left versus right. Mm-hmm. But this was nothing to do with politics to me. And it happened, unfortunately, at the time of a very challenging election. But the reality is this is above politics. This is wrong. And it's still advertised on the Clinton website right now as something they did that was good. And the check still has not come, and it's maybe 7 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah, there would be 7.
This would be 7 years. So they've had plenty of time. And we wrote to them.
Interest.
And we wrote to them and invited them to my studio before we released the film to fix the problem, because ideally they would have seen it and gone, oh my goodness, this is a terrible mistake, we'll fix it like that, because they can, but they didn't show up, no comment. So my role is not to accuse them from a political point of view, but my role is to say, if we do support one side of politics, we have to be as critical of ourselves as we do the other side. And we have to make sure that we hold ourselves to the highest level before we criticise anybody. So I put it in. I put it in because I believe in the difference between right and wrong. And I think this is nothing to do with politics. This is to do with women's empowerment and to do with being compassionate. And if the young women from the Congo can show this compassion when they have so little, can't these multi-millionaires and powerful people who brag about all their authority every day to us, can't they do something tiny? Why is that so difficult? It doesn't make sense to me. But I believe in you guys, and I believe in our society, and I believe as a storyteller, all I need to do is just tell the truth, and you will decide what to do. It's not for me to say to anyone what they should or shouldn't do. I'm fully confident that when we know the facts, we as a society do eventually make the right decision.
That's beautiful. I had no idea that this was happening with the mining there to this extent. I mean, you taught me something. This is such a multifaceted film with what's going on with the women and how they're being brutalized, with what's going on with the mining and who's purchasing the minerals. What has happened since people have seen this film?
It's complicated.
I know.
It's very complicated. And as with poverty in America, which is my next film that I'm working on now, it's not, there is no bumper sticker with an answer. This goes deep into even our society, because all the devices, all these mobile devices, anything that's got a battery in it, it's got cobalt in it, all these semi-precious minerals come from the ground. And as with many years ago, rubber, the last industrial revolution was one of the precious things, natural resources. Our fourth industrial revolution that we're currently experiencing, it's these semi-precious minerals, like the ones I listed. And they all come from a few special regions in the world. And it so happens that the Congo is one of the most rich nations in the world for semi-precious minerals. But the Congo, as I said in the movie, is so corrupt. And if you think of the demand of mobile technology and every laptop and every screen and every phone, every tablet, if you think of how much natural resources are being pulled out of the ground to feed our hunger for our own empowerment. And all we have to do is pretty simple, is just say to the tech companies before you buy, is this clean? And if you can guarantee as a tech company that yes, it's clean, in the same way they guarantee how cool the product is and how it's going to empower your life, they can guarantee the source is 100% clean, then you should feel fantastic about being part of that side of the fourth industrial revolution that we're experiencing. But if they can't guarantee it, then maybe you shouldn't guarantee your custom, your voters and your customers. That makes you in society much more powerful than the politicians and much more powerful than all these tech companies. Because at the end of the day, there always comes a magic moment when they need you, either for your vote or to buy their product. So you have the power, and my job is just to tell you how powerful and fantastic you really are, and to tell you some of the facts that I discovered. And then it's up to you to take it further and transform the world. And I believe we're going to do it.
And you list some of that on your website, do you not?
Yes.
Do you want to give us a little tip?
What? About what?
Some of the companies that are actually doing it right.
Well, I think in true engagement, I encourage you all to go to mybodiesnotaweapon.com, because I'm sure you're all capable of going on the website. And it's very simple, and there's just a list there. But you should feel good about that list. The irony is that after I was at Cannes once, and I was invited to a dinner, and I was sitting at a table where all the heads of these tech companies are there. And I know that they've all sat for me personally. So I read out Sandra's song to them at the dinner table. And I said to myself just before I do it, in fact I announced it to the table, I'm about to commit professional harry-carry, because I'm going to tell you guys something that you should know, but as a portrait photographer, I'm almost sure you're never going to sit for me ever again, and you're certainly never going to invite me to dinner. But the response was transformative, and there was silence at the dinner table. And all these powerful people suddenly realised that their power has just been turned upside down into a word called responsibility. That comes with power. That's the price.
Did they connect with you after at all?
Yeah.
They did.
And I'm pleased to tell you that now everyone at the table is on that list.
That's fantastic.
Oh, wow.
Okay. You shot this film with the iPhone 5 and a Canon camera. Pretty outstanding work.
Well, we didn't even intend to make a film.
I know.
This made itself by accident, because I'm a photographer. I don't know really anything about filmmaking. I don't know how festivals work. I can't believe I'm sitting here, because this is not my terrain. But I'm very happy to be here. But we did a photo shoot, and I interviewed everyone, and as we were going, I realised this story is massive. And all my crew had been shooting out of car windows and everything, as we all do all day long with our phones.
Were you concerned about safety?
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, no, we risked our lives.
No.
I mean, we went into rebel territory. You can't go there now. I mean, we had a 2-week opening before the government shut it down, because so many people were being abducted and tortured or killed that the government didn't want investigations from any other countries. So they, instead of fixing the problem, they actually just closed the borders. So you can't do this film now. I mean, I don't go with a little camera. I've got, we built studios everywhere, even in the mountains in rebel territory. So it's like doing a, giant advertising photo shoot in the middle of the bloody Congo. But look, we did it.
And your first film too, which is pretty remarkable.
It's an accidental film.
Beautiful.
But the next one won't be accidental. The next one, biblical.
I'm so honored to be able to speak with you. And again, before we wrap up, I just want you to tell everyone how they can find out more information and once again your foundation.
Well, firstly, I'm nothing. I'm just a messenger. All right. So I'll leave you with this. So I had the great pleasure to work with Muhammad Ali, and he was very ill, and he was. It turns out it was his last ever photo shoot.
Wow.
So he was suffering from Parkinson's disease, as we all know. And so I said to him, Muhammad, you are the greatest. Teach me to be great. How can my generation be as great as your generation had to be during the civil rights era? And he couldn't speak very well, so he could barely mumble. So I had to get close to him, and he whispered in my ear, and he said, I have a confession to make. So I said, what is it? And he said, I wasn't as great as I said I was. Holy shit, I said. That's the biggest confession I ever heard. And then he said, I think you misunderstand me, young man. He said, I'll tell you what was great. He said, what was great is that people saw themselves in my struggle. That people saw themselves in my story. And then he turned it to me. Now I have the honor to turn it to you. And he said, if you can get people to see themselves in the stories that you tell, then you have a chance of achieving greatness. But that greatness is never you personally. That's something much more important called bridge building. So my honesty in this film is my struggle with a very difficult story to tell. It's the untellable story. But I hope that you see yourselves in my struggle trying to come to terms with not only the challenges that these women face in the Congo, but I know for a fact that women face these challenges right here too. I bet some of them in this room.
Yes, absolutely.
I know some of them in this room. So it's close. And we are global citizens, and we have to think about a new type of identity now. It's not just a local identity or a national identity, but there's a new identity called global identity. There are certain values that we share with everyone on the planet, and that is human rights. So, I believe in that. I'm not ashamed to say I believe in that. And I know when I started out, I felt very lonely saying stuff like that. But I don't feel lonely no more, because I've been invited here to talk to you. So I feel like I'm amongst friends, and I think I'm part of a new movement. So fight the power.
Thank you so much.
Let's give a big round of applause. Platon, Deborah Kobylt.